Hi guys, good morning. Welcome back to another week of online learning. We're on to the second week. Not sure what's gonna happen next week, but this could be the last week of online. I might be able to see you next week, hopefully. Okay, so last week we did introduction to psychology. I talked about the syllabus. You guys did activity on the research study. So those activities yang we did on Thursday and Saturday, it actually links to this week's punya lesson, okay? Which is, I'm gonna go through the introduction to research studies. So today, I'm gonna explain about the key components to a research study. So 4 of the group last time did research on this, right? And I asked you to come up with 5 components. Today, I'm gonna go through 10 components to a research studies, okay? So the reason why I ask you to do that activity is because at least you get a head start on what we're gonna talk about this week. Okay. 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 So this is the activity that you guys have completed masa last week. So it was meant to be a pair activity but because there is a lot of you guys, so I rather do it as a group of 4. So I asked you guys to find out on any research that you find interesting, and then I asked you to share it with the other people. Okay, the reason why I asked you to do this activity is because I just want to get you to familiar yourself with the structure of a research. Okay, because when we go into the study itself, when we're learning psychology, our topics is based on research studies. All of our topics are research study. So you need to know the structure. Macam mana orang membuat studies itu. Like, what are the components that are needed in a research? So when you read a research, right? Every research mesti ada participant, mesti ada A, mesti ada results, mesti ada conclusion. So that is what I want you to be familiar with. Okay? Structure of a research study. So aside from the content, you also need to know the structure, because in the end nanti, you would be the one yang at the end of the year nanti, there will be a project where you have to conduct your own research. Okay? Because as a psychologist, you need to know macam mana to conduct a research. Okay? So hence, that's why I ask you to do this activity. Okay, so again, this group activity we have done already. Today we're going to discuss the 10 key component to a research study. Okay, last time I asked you to research 5 saja. So today I'm going to go through 10 of it. Okay. Okay, so today we're going to go through the 10 key component to a research study. So there's actually more component to a research study, more than this, but as of this level, A level ini, you just have to know 10 saja. So this 10 would be the ones that we will go through every core studies, okay? So for research study, the 10 components are the background, the theory, the keywords, the methods, participants, ethical guideline, data collected, results, conclusion, methodological issues, strength, and limitation. Okay, so these are the 10 components that I will go through one by one in the next slide. Okay. Alright, so first component is the background to the study, which is the context. So this background, it explains why the research was conducted. So basically, before you want to conduct a research, there should be a background. Kenapa? Like, what makes you want to conduct the study? Okay, so every research mesti ada a background to it. Okay, so like I wanted to study pasal obedience, for example. Why? So maybe I would say because previously in this year, I found out that a lot of people have disobeyed the government. So that makes me want to study the obedience in this year. So basically, the background of my context is yang tadi itu, yang before this. Okay? So background look into why the research was conducted, what was the justification kenapa research itu kind of what, okay? So the research may be a response to an earlier study. Okay, this could also be possible. Macam, okay, this study cakap man is a better driver than woman lah, misalnya. Okay, so I disagree lah. For example, I disagree with that results. I say, I don't think so. I'm gonna conduct a study to lawan the previous study. So you get what I'm saying? Sometimes people do research. Sometimes people do research as a response to an earlier study. Okay? So kira earlier study itu dorang punya background lah kenapa they wanted to do that research. Okay? And then it could have been done to support a theory by an author or someone else, or to investigate further or explain real life event. Okay, this is also another reason kenapa people do studies lah. Sometimes people come up with theory kan, tapi there's no evidence. So people would do research to prove that theory, okay, to support the particular theory, or they just wanna investigate saja. Okay, macam this person come up with this theory that if you sleep awal, you're gonna look younger. It's a theory lah, for example. Theory-nya sleeping early will make you look younger the next day. So, tapi ada evidence, buat theory saja lah macam tu. So, as a researcher, I would conduct a study to support that theory itu lah. So, I wanted an explanation, or I wanted to provide evidence if it's true ataupun indah. Okay, so all those are considered as background. Background ni macam the reason kenapa orang itu buat the study itself. Okay, so that's the background. So that's why background ni awal-awal, the first component, because it usually is the onset of the research. Ia yang the main reason kenapa research itu kena conducted. Okay, so background mesti ada dulu. The first component is background to the study. Okay, the second one is the theory or theories on which studies are based. Okay, so studies are often based on particular theory or theories. Sometimes the reverse occur when the research is conducted and a theory is then proposed to explain the finding. Okay, most of the study usually dorang buat in order to prove a theory. Okay, so they come up with theory dulu. Okay, theory is like an assumption like, okay, yang macam tadi lah, the assumption is if you sleep early, you will look younger, atau theory-nya. Kalau satu dari theory itu sekarang baru tadi orang buat study, or sometimes it's the other way around juga, like I read the second bullet point itu kan, they do the research dulu. After siap analyze apa, they come up with result, baru dah they concluded it with the theory. They say, okay, from this evidence, I come up with the theory that kalau you sleep early, you will look younger. Okay? So usually theory itu, it comes after background lah. Theory itu, it's what created the research itself. Ataupun it can be reversed. In some occasion, it could be reversed lah. Okay? Alright. So next one. Okay, the next component is the keywords or the jargon. So research study, most of them have keywords, okay, that you need to learn. So throughout the year, you will be learning a lot of keywords. First bullet point there, wherever you can, write like a psychologist. Use the jargon. So the jargon are there to be used, okay? So that's why I would emphasize kalau ada keywords for you to really understand the keyword, to hafalkan the keywords, because those keywords are very important. It usually you have to use it in an exam, okay? Exam question will never write out the full name of the author. So basically, if you lihat arah the core study, the name of the author are banyak kan. Macam sometimes one research study itu have more than one researcher. Demand and Clydeman, Schechter and Singer, banyak ia punya the author. The one yang conducted the study itu ramai. Okay, so the question will not write the whole full name, nama sampai nama bapanya, apa panjang-panjang indah. They're not gonna write that. So if you see here the third bullet point, the common convention are they are three. If there are three or more authors, it's to write the first name saja and then et al. So for example, macam yang buat study ni macam like Miss Umi, siapa baik? Miss Umi, Erdina, Shahira, misalnya tiga lah ha. So in the exam question, they will not write tiga-tiga. They would not write the study conducted by Umi, Erdina, and Shahira. Panjang kan tau. So you ambil the first person saja, yang the main person yang buat the study. For example, Umi, cerita. They would say Umi et al. Et al means and all. So basically macam kalau kadai, you see how macam namanya macam apa nama kadai ni? Like something dan anak-anak. Kalau nama kadai, right? They do like that. So they don't write the whole anak-anaknya kan. So same thing lah, like this one macam they would ambil the first person name saja, like Umi, and then et al. Et al means everyone else yang involved with it. Okay? So example there, Kenley et al. So if you see et al ni, artinya si Kenley ni the main researcher. Et al tu artinya ada lagi dengan-dengannya yang membuat the research. But because there's a lot, so they just buat et al saja. So Kenley et al. So our exam question sama je the same thing. They would write the first name saja, one person punya name et al. Unless kalau study itu conducted by just one person or two persons saja, then they would put both of their name or just one name saja. Okay? Alright. Now, this is important. A very important component, which is the method used. So, what are the method that was used by the researcher conducting the core studies? So, there are a lot of methods which we would learn throughout this week. So, there's different types of experiment. There are different types of observations, self-report questionnaire, interview, case study. All these methods in it, I will teach you one by one. Okay? So sometimes in studies, they use more than one method. For example, macam studies niya tu pakai interview, and then dia pakai interview, dia pakai observation juga. Or macam dia pakai experiment at the same time, dia pakai questionnaire. So usually, research studies, they don't use one method saja. Dorang combine different methods to collect the data. Okay? So again, this one, we will go through that in the next lesson. Okay, the next component to a research study is participant and how were they recruited. So for every research study, there should be participant, because kalau ada participants, cuma akan collect the data, okay? So all study have participants, so you need to know who the participants are, how they were recruited, how can it affect the outcome of the study, and the conclusion that can be drawn, okay? So for every study, you need to know the details of the participants. For example, how many participants in that study, how many male, how many female, what are their age group, how were they recruited? Do they volunteer to be involved in the study? Were they selected randomly? Were they paid to participate in the study? So all these details in it are what you would have to memorize lah for every core studies ito. The participants detail and chumana dorang kana recruited ito is the most important part lah. Okay? So participant in it's quite straightforward saja. Now, next one is ethical guideline. Does the study contravene any ethical guidelines? So many studies contravene the ethical guideline laid down by the British Psychological Society, BPS, and American Psychological Association, APS. So, ethical guidelines are basically the rules and regulation that was created by these two society, yang BPS sama APS and it, for psychologists or any researcher to follow. Okay, so kira if you don't follow this guideline kira your study itu it's not ethical. Okay, for example, one of the ethical guideline is consent. And the second bullet point there, did the researcher gain consent from the participant? Was the participants protected from any harm? So that too is an example of ethical guidelines. Satu, mesti ada consent. They say that one of the rule, if you buat research, you need to gain consent from the participant. The participant mesti tahu that they are in a study. Or the second one, participant must be protected from any harm. Okay? So kalau macam misalnya orang itu masuk area your research and then suddenly you hurt them during the research itu, then your research will be considered as unethical. Okay? So another important component is ethical guidelines. So for every study ito, yang 12 ito, the 12 core study, we will at the end we will have to evaluate whether the study itu ethical ataupun tidak ethical. Okay, so that's why we will be learning about ethical guideline in the next lesson. Alright, now another important component is the data collection. How are the data collected? This is important. Before you want to go to the results, you have to collect the data. Okay, so the method may be an experiment, but the data can be gathered in many different ways. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to collect the data. Data can appear as response category, like in a chart, but they can also be in the form of number or what people say. Data in the form of number are known as quantitative data. And then qualitative data would be data that describes meaning and experience rather than providing numerical values for behavior. So data ada two types. There's two types of data. We have quantitative data and we have qualitative data. Quanti from the word itself, quantity. Okay? Quantitative data are basically data yang in the form of number. Okay, so you know how kalau data like how many of you yang here, how many of the students are female, how many are male? So for example, female 15, male 18 lah, for example. So that number though, it's considered as quantitative data pasal it's in the form of number. Qualitative is basically the opposite lah. It's in words. It describe the behavior in words. So for example, if I ask macam one of the question in my research is why do you sleep last night? So you cannot pakai number kan toh, you cannot like answer my question with numbers. You have to answer my question with words. So you say I sleep because I am tired. So your statement of I am tired ato is considered as qualitative data. Okay? So data ada dua, quanti, quali. Quanti is words, quanti is based on number. Okay? And then once you have the data, how were the data presented? It can be presented in different ways lah. Usually the most common one is pakai tables. Okay, they use table and then they laid out the numbers itulah. Descriptive statistics which describe or summarize data include measure of central tendency, mean, median, mode, or dispersion, which is range. Again, this one, data analysis, we will study data analysis nanti. This is the last topic, research method itulah. So you need to know mean, what does it mean? Mean, what does it mean? Okay. Yeah. You need to know what does mean represent. Median apa, mode apa, range apa. There's also another one, standard deviation. So the data are usually described or presented by this statistics nila mean, median, mode, range sama standard deviation. It can also be presented visually pakai bar chart, histogram, or scattergraph. So again, we will be learning this in the next topic. Okay, data analysis is the last one though. Okay. Alright, so the last component or research studies that I want to explain is the results and conclusion. So you already have the data, okay? You have, for example, macam 18 male, 15 female. You cannot just, okay, this is the data, kata you baca sendiri, you fahamkan sendiri. So you cannot do that. So that's why you need to come up with the results. So this results, basically you are explaining the data. You have the data here, you have to interpret the data. You have to say, okay, from this data, we can tell that female is something something than male, okay? So once the data have been gathered, we need to know what they mean. If we accept the data as valid, so if the data is valid, how do we summarize what has been found? So basically, you just have to summarize apa arti data to. What does it mean? Is it supporting the aim of the study? So if we go back to the original aims of the study, what do the results tell us? So basically, misalnya lah, the aim is to find out who is a better driver, female ka male. So you have the data already. So from there, the results will tell you that, okay, siapa lagi better driver? Okay, is it male ataupun female? Okay, so same thing like that lah. Results ni basically it's supposed to link the whole thing back. Like, is the data supporting the aim or is it rejecting the aim? Contoh, okay. After that, baru tah conclusion. So to conclude, misalnya female is a better driver than male because female is less likely to be involved in an accident based on the data that have been gathered. Okay, so once you have the results, and then baru tah last kali you conclude the whole thing. Okay, I think conclusion it's quite self-explanatory. Alright, so that's basically it for the component. So when we go into the core studies nanti yang 12 ito, for every 12 ani, these are the component yang you mesti tahu. Like you have to know, for example, the study by Tiemann and Kleitman about the eye movement ato during sleeping. You need to know apa methods niya ia pakai, siapa participant niya, what about the ethical guideline, did they break the ethical guideline or not, data niya apa, quanti ka, qualitative ka, how was the data presented, did they use mean, did they use mode ka, berapa standard deviation niya, and then what are the results, what are the conclusion. So for every core studies ato, you would have to go through all these components, okay? So that's why psychology ni banyak memorizing. All those information, you have to memorize it, okay? But then don't worry too much about it because I will guide you through it, okay? It sounded macam banyak, but if you actually interested in the core studies ato, you macam it becomes effortless to memorize it. Like if you're interested in a movie, right? You are more likely to be able to ingatkan the storyline of the movie. So same thing like this. Like if you are interested in the core study, if you're interested in the things that you are learning, even though banyak kan dihafalkan, but because you're interested, ia sanang ka na ingatkan. Okay, it goes into your memory better. So don't worry about it yet. Okay, so that is it that I wanted to cover for today. So don't forget to fill in the exit form after this, and then if you haven't take the attendance, do the attendance first. And what else? Yeah, I think that's basically it. So I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. If you cannot attend the lesson, text me up and then make sure you dangar balik apa yang you miss ini. Okay? So don't just leave it unattended cuma tu saja. Make sure you cover back what you have missed. Okay, talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you for today. Bye.